On the surface, Diane Schuler looked like the perfect mother. But just hours after the CCTV footage was recorded, she would drive the wrong way down a highway at nearly 80 miles per hour, causing one of the deadliest family crashes in America.
It was a horrific scene on the Taconic Parkway near Route 117 this afternoon. This burned-out shell was all that remained of a minivan after the head-on crash, which left 8 people dead. More than one family was destroyed tonight after a horrible crash on the Taconic Parkway.
What happened during those final moments still confuses investigators to this day. The story begins with Diane Schuler, who was born in 1973 to Warren Hance Sr. and Aileen McCough. She grew up as the only daughter among 4 children, but her childhood changed completely when her mother left the family while Diane was only 9 years old. Years later she married Daniel Schuler, and together they had 2 children, a son named Brian and a daughter named Erin. On the morning of July 26, 2009, 36-year-old Diane Schuler left the family's camping trailer at Hunter Lake Campground in Parksville, New York. The family regularly spent weekends there camping and relaxing together. That weekend Diane, her husband Daniel, their 2 children Brian and Erin, and the family dog had all been staying there. Diane had also brought along her 3 nieces, Emma, Allison, and Kate Hance, who were the daughters of Diane's brother Warren and his wife Jackie. Diane left the campground driving Warren's red 2003 Ford Windstar minivan with all 5 children inside, while Daniel left separately in a pickup truck with the dog. Since the pickup truck didn't have enough room for the children, it made more sense for Diane to take them in the minivan, while Daniel headed straight home to begin unpacking after the camping trip. Diane planned to make several stops on the drive back, including getting breakfast for the children and running errands. Before leaving, Diane and the kids spoke briefly with the campground owner. The children happily talked about how much fun they had during the weekend. At 9:56 a.m., Diane stopped with the children at a McDonald's in Liberty, New York. The children ate breakfast and spent some time playing before the group continued driving. Nearly an hour later, around 10:46 a.m., Diane stopped again at a Sunoco gas station, also located in Liberty. Security footage from the station showed Diane walking inside normally with no obvious signs of intoxication or unusual behavior. According to her family, Diane had gone into the store looking for over-the-counter pain medication, but she left without buying anything because the station did not carry the specific medicine she wanted. About 15 minutes later, Diane continued driving with the children, and this was the point where witnesses later said her behavior began to change. At 11:37 a.m., Diane called her sister-in-law Jackie and explained they were running late because of traffic. During the conversation, Diane discussed plans to attend the nieces' play later that day and asked Jackie to arrange tickets for herself and Brian. The call itself sounded fairly normal, but shortly afterward witnesses began reporting dangerous driving along Route 17 and Interstate 86. Drivers described Diane's minivan speeding aggressively, tailgating vehicles, flashing headlights, honking repeatedly, and weaving across lanes. Some drivers later said they thought an accident was inevitable based on how recklessly the minivan was moving through traffic. At one point, a witness pulled into the Ramapo rest area and noticed Diane arriving there as well. Instead of parking in the normal section, Diane stopped near the truck parking area. The witness later reported seeing Diane open the driver's door and lean over as though she was sick or vomiting beside the vehicle. However, by the time the witness returned from inside the rest stop, Diane and the children had already left. Later that afternoon, Diane's brother Warren and his wife Jackie received another phone call from Diane's phone, a call that immediately alarmed them because Diane sounded confused and disoriented. This phone call immediately worried Warren and Jackie because Diane sounded completely different from normal. The call lasted around 2.5 minutes, and during it Diane sounded confused, disoriented, and unable to think clearly. She told them she was having trouble seeing, and at one point she even accidentally called her brother Warren by her husband's name, Danny. Based on the timing of the call, investigators later believed Diane had pulled over near the Tappan Zee Bridge toll booths while speaking to them. Warren became alarmed and told Diane to stay where she was so he could come find her himself. During the same call, Warren's oldest daughter Emma grabbed the phone and told her father something was seriously wrong with Aunt Diane. Emma explained that Diane was talking strangely and saying she couldn't see properly. Warren tried to stay calm and asked Emma to look around for any nearby road signs. Emma managed to read a sign that said, Tarrytown, but moments later the call suddenly disconnected. Warren immediately got into his car and started driving toward the area where he believed Diane was located. Around 1:10 p.m., Diane's phone accidentally dialed several wrong numbers while Warren repeatedly tried calling her back. None of his calls were answered. Investigators later discovered Diane's phone had either been dropped or intentionally left behind near the tollbooth area because it was eventually found resting on one of the dividers there. Around the same time, worried family members contacted authorities and explained that Diane was driving with 5 children inside the vehicle while possibly experiencing some kind of medical emergency. They described how the children had called in distress, reporting Diane was driving erratically and acting strangely. As police attempted to determine the vehicle's location, Diane continued driving and eventually reached the Taconic State Parkway near Briarcliff Manor. At 1:33 p.m., emergency calls began flooding in about a red minivan entering a one-way section of the Taconic Parkway from the wrong direction. Diane had driven onto a northbound exit ramp while actually traveling south. Minutes later, more drivers called 911 reporting that the minivan was speeding directly toward traffic at nearly 70 to 80 miles per hour. Witnesses later described the terrifying scene, saying Diane's vehicle continued straight ahead without swerving as cars desperately pulled over to avoid a head-on collision. Several people who saw Diane through the windshield said she appeared strangely calm and focused. Instead of reacting or attempting to correct the vehicle, she stared straight ahead almost motionless, as though she were in a trance. Some witnesses later said it looked intentional because she never tried to avoid the oncoming traffic. At approximately 1:35 p.m. on July 26, 2009, Diane Schuler crashed head-on into a 2004 Chevrolet Trailblazer while traveling around 85 miles per hour. The impact was so violent that the Trailblazer was pushed into another vehicle.
Police 911.
Oh my God, Dan, oh shit, big accident. What road are we on?
What mile walk are you at?
What road are we at? What road is this? London Road.
What? Hold on, stop yelling.
Oh, so bad.
911.
Listen, I'm also getting you to the police officer.
Okay, are you out at the scene right now?
Yes, I'm at the scene.
Okay, are there any injuries?
No, we have fatalities.
Fatality at the scene? Okay, stay on the phone with me. I'm going to give you EMS, okay? Hold on.
Okay, so the ambulance too, we have a possible car fire. Car may blow up as well.
So there's a car fire and a fatality?
Yeah, we have numerous fatalities.
Numerous fatalities?
We have one.
This is at 4.1 northbound Taconic, 60 control. Alright.
A 2002 Chevrolet Tracker. The collision instantly turned into a horrific disaster. Diane's minivan burst into flames and was almost completely destroyed within moments. Witnesses who rushed toward the wreckage later described the scene as chaotic and devastating, with smoke, fire, and severely crushed vehicles scattered across the roadway. The crash scene was horrifying, and most people nearby were left frozen in shock. However, 2 men quickly reacted and rushed toward the wreckage to see if anyone could still be saved. The vehicles were already badly destroyed, smoking heavily, and beginning to catch fire. When the men opened the driver's door of Diane's minivan, her body immediately collapsed out onto the road. It was obvious she had died instantly. Near the driver's seat they noticed a bottle of Absolute vodka inside the vehicle. Realizing there were still children trapped in the back, the men moved past Diane and searched through the wreckage trying to find survivors. In the rear of the van they found several children piled together from the force of the impact. They checked pulses and desperately tried pulling the children free from the destroyed vehicle. Eventually they found 5-year-old Brian alive beneath his sister and cousins. Despite suffering serious injuries, he was still breathing, making him the only survivor inside Diane's minivan. The victims of the crash included Diane herself, her 2-year-old daughter Erin, and her 3 nieces Emma, Allison, and Kate Hance. 2 of the girls died immediately, while another survived briefly before later dying at the hospital. Brian survived with broken bones, head injuries, and severe trauma, spending weeks recovering in the hospital afterward. The crash also killed all 3 men riding in the Chevrolet Trailblazer: 81-year-old Michael Bastardi, his 49-year-old son Guy Bastardi, and their friend Dan Longo, who was 74 years old. The two people traveling in the Chevrolet Tracker survived with only minor injuries. As emergency crews arrived, the highway turned into complete chaos as investigators processed the massive crash scene while officers attempted to shield the victims from public view and control the growing crowd of shocked witnesses. Soon afterward, Diane's body was taken for an autopsy, and the toxicology results revealed something devastating. Diane's blood alcohol level measured 0.19, more than twice the legal driving limit of 0.08 in New York. Experts estimated the level was equivalent to roughly 10 drinks. In addition to the alcohol, toxicology tests also found high levels of THC, the active chemical found in marijuana. Investigators concluded Diane had been heavily intoxicated while driving with 5 children inside the vehicle. Attention soon shifted toward Diane's husband Daniel and her sister-in-law Jay, both of whom strongly refused to believe the toxicology results were accurate. Warren and Jackie, who had lost all 3 of their daughters in the crash, chose to stay mostly out of the public spotlight afterward and avoided media attention as much as possible. Daniel and Jay became convinced Diane had suffered some kind of sudden medical emergency rather than driving intoxicated. They believed the toxicology reports were wrong and insisted Diane would never intentionally drink or use drugs while driving children. However, the autopsy found no evidence of a stroke, aneurysm, heart attack, or any other medical condition that could explain the crash. At first, Daniel claimed Diane barely drank alcohol at all and denied there had been any drinking during the camping trip. Over time, his story slowly changed, eventually admitting alcohol had been present during the trip, though he still refused to believe Diane drank heavily that morning. Jay was slightly more open to the idea that Diane occasionally used marijuana, mainly to help herself sleep, but she also insisted Diane would never drive intoxicated with children inside the vehicle. Their disbelief partly came from the fact that earlier witnesses throughout the morning, including campground staff, McDonald's employees, and gas station surveillance footage, all showed Diane appearing calm, coherent, and sober. Months later, after repeatedly challenging the investigation publicly, Daniel paid for Diane's toxicology tests to be independently retested by another laboratory because he remained convinced there had been a mistake. There was still hope from Daniel and Jay that some mistake had been made. But when the second lab tested Diane's samples again, the results matched the original report. Her blood alcohol level was extremely high, and THC was also found in her system. Later, another expert reviewed the autopsy, toxicology reports, and the full investigation and reached the same conclusion. Everything had been handled correctly, and there was no evidence of a medical emergency. Despite this, Daniel and Jay continued refusing to believe Diane had been drunk and high while driving with the children. Even after multiple experts confirmed the same findings, they stayed in deep denial, unable to accept that someone they loved could have caused such a horrific tragedy. A strange moment in the documentary made that denial stand out even more. Jay admitted on camera that nobody in her family knew she smoked cigarettes, yet at the same time she insisted Diane could never have hidden secret drinking or drug use from the family. The contradiction made many people feel that the family simply could not emotionally process what had happened. Still, there was another important detail investigators considered. Diane had reportedly been suffering from a severe tooth problem for weeks. Medical records showed repeated dentist visits, and friends said she often held her jaw in pain. At the gas station earlier that morning, it's believed she was specifically searching for strong pain medication but left empty-handed when she couldn't find what she wanted. Some people later theorized that Diane may have been in unbearable pain from a possible tooth abscess or infection. The pain, combined with stress and maybe even fever, could have affected her judgment. Since there was vodka in the vehicle from the camping trip, investigators believed she may have started drinking to numb the pain. Because the children were in the car, she may have taken quick hidden drinks without realizing how much alcohol she was consuming. At some point she also smoked marijuana, which only made the situation worse. Whether it was pain, panic, intoxication, or a complete mental breakdown, Diane eventually lost control completely. No matter what explanation people tried to give, the facts remained the same. Diane drove heavily intoxicated with 5 children inside the vehicle, and the crash killed 8 people. Daniel struggled to accept that reality because admitting it also meant accepting that the woman he loved caused the deaths of innocent people, including children from their own family. But for the victims' families, especially the relatives of the 3 men who died in the other vehicle. The constant denial only made the tragedy harder to move on from. Diane was gone, so for many people there was no one left to blame. That's why Daniel's constant denial became so frustrating for the victims' families and even for Warren and Jackie. They believed Diane made a terrible mistake that cost 7 innocent lives, and they wanted Daniel to finally admit it so everyone could begin moving forward. But instead, he kept rejecting what the evidence clearly showed, which only made the pain and anger worse for everyone involved. After the crash, Brian spent weeks recovering from broken bones, head injuries, vision problems, and emotional trauma. Jay helped take care of him often because Daniel was suddenly left raising him alone. According to Jay, every time Brian spoke about the accident, his story stayed exactly the same. He would only say that right before the crash his mother's head hurt, and she couldn't see properly. Since Brian was only 5 years old and had survived something extremely traumatic, investigators never pushed him too hard for more details. Nobody truly knows what was happening in Diane's mind during those final moments. Some believe the alcohol and marijuana completely impaired her, while others think extreme pain, stress, or even a mental breakdown may have pushed her into a confused and irrational state. But no matter the explanation, the outcome was devastating. 8 people lost their lives in a tragedy that likely could have been avoided if Diane had simply stopped driving and asked for help.